Logan Wayne's hands trembled as he stared at the photograph that had just slipped from Emma Cross's personal file. A file he'd never meant to open, a boundary he'd never meant to cross. But here he was at 2:17 a.m. in his home office, surrounded by the suffocating silence of his Manhattan penthouse, holding evidence that the woman he'd fallen in love with, the woman currently sleeping 3 floors above him after reading bedtime stories to his daughter, was connected to the night that destroyed his world. The photo was old, maybe 15 years, but there was no mistaking those gentle green eyes or that soft smile. Emma Cross, barely 18, standing beside a man Logan would never forget. Vincent Cross, the drunk driver who'd killed his wife Sarah in a head-on collision and walked away without a single charge. Emma's last name wasn't coincidence. It was legacy. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my channel where love collides with secrets and hearts break before they heal. I can already feel your energy through the screen. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Are you team forgiveness or team justice? And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, you're about to witness a story that will make you believe in the power of love to conquer even the darkest truths. Don't miss a single twist. Logan's breath came in sharp bursts as memories crashed over him like a tsunami. Sarah's laugh, her hand on her pregnant belly. The call at 11:43 p.m. that changed everything. Your wife's been in an accident, sir. You need to come immediately. The devastation of losing not just his soulmate, but their unborn son in one senseless moment of another man's weakness. Vincent Cross had pled guilty to vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated, served 18 months in minimum security, and disappeared into witness protection after receiving death threats. Logan had spent millions trying to find him, to make him pay for taking everything that mattered. The man had vanished like smoke, leaving Logan with nothing but rage and the hollow shell of a life built around his surviving daughter, Lily. Now Vincent Cross's daughter was living in his home, caring for his child, sleeping in his guest room after nights spent talking about literature and philosophy and dreams for the future. Emma, who made Lily laugh for the first time since her mother died. Emma, who'd slowly, carefully coaxed Logan back to life with her patience and kindness. Emma, who'd kissed him just yesterday morning in the kitchen while Lily was at school, whispering that she was falling in love with both him and the beautiful life they were building together. Emma, whose father had murdered his family. Logan's phone buzzed against the mahogany desk, the sound sharp in the pre-dawn quiet. Unknown number. His blood turned to ice as he read the message. I see you found my little gift, Mr. Wayne. Emma doesn't know you've discovered her connection to your tragic past. Does she? Such a shame it would be if she learned the truth about why you really hired her. Call me if you want to keep your secrets safe. A friend. The photograph fluttered from Logan's numb fingers as he understood the scope of his nightmare. Someone knew. Someone was watching. Someone had orchestrated this entire situation, positioning Emma Cross in his life for reasons he couldn't begin to fathom. But the worst part, the part that made his chest feel like it was caving in, was the growing certainty that Emma's presence in his home wasn't coincidence. The woman he'd fallen in love with, the woman who'd made his daughter smile again, had sought him out deliberately. She'd applied for the nanny position 6 months ago with impeccable references, perfect timing, and an almost supernatural ability to heal the wounds Sarah's death had left in both Logan and Lily. Either Emma Cross was an innocent pawn in someone else's game, or she was the architect of his destruction. Logan stood on unsteady legs and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of Central Park. Somewhere in this sleeping city was the person who'd sent that photograph, the puppet master who'd been pulling strings for months while Logan fell deeper in love with a woman whose very existence was a betrayal. His reflection stared back from the dark glass. A man who'd built an empire on ruthless calculation, who'd trusted no one since Sarah's death, who'd sworn never to let emotion cloud his judgment again. Yet here he was, completely undone by green eyes and gentle hands, and the sound of his daughter's laughter echoing through rooms that had been tomb silent for too long. Another message lit up his phone. Emma's in danger, Mr. Wayne. The people who want revenge against her father are getting impatient. They're coming for her tomorrow night. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to let Vincent Cross's daughter face the same fate your wife did. Poetic justice, don't you think? Logan's blood froze as he realized the photograph wasn't just revelation, it was ransom. Someone was using Emma's connection to Vincent Cross to threaten her life, counting on Logan's protective instincts to override his thirst for vengeance. They'd played him perfectly, maneuvering him into a position where he'd have to choose between justice for his wife and safety for the woman who'd stolen his heart. But they'd miscalculated one crucial factor. Logan Wayne hadn't built a billion-dollar empire by being predictable. He was about to show them exactly how dangerous a man could be when someone threatened his family, even if that family included the daughter of his greatest enemy. The elevator chimed softly in the distance, and Logan's heart hammered as he realized someone was moving through his penthouse. At 2:30 a.m., it could only be Emma, probably checking on Lily after a nightmare or getting water from the kitchen. Emma, who had no idea her carefully constructed world was about to explode. Emma, who might be innocent victim or calculating mastermind. Emma, whose father's choices had destroyed Logan's life, and whose own choices might determine whether either of them survived what was coming. Logan pocketed his phone and the photograph, his mind already working through contingencies and escape plans and ways to protect both his daughter and the woman he loved from enemies he couldn't yet identify. But as he heard Emma's soft footsteps in the hallway above, one question echoed through his mind like a death knell. How do you save someone when you're not sure if they're the victim or the weapon aimed at your heart? And how do you fight an enemy who knows exactly which strings to pull to make you choose love over vengeance, even when that choice might destroy everything you've spent 15 years trying to rebuild? The footsteps stopped directly above his office, and Logan held his breath, knowing that tomorrow would bring answers that would either heal his family or tear them apart forever. But tonight, for just a few more hours, he could pretend that love was stronger than secrets, and that some betrayals were too beautiful to survive the truth. Emma Cross stood in the doorway of 6-year-old Lily Wayne's bedroom, watching the little girl sleep with an expression of such pure tenderness that it made Logan's chest ache. Even from his position in the hallway shadows, he could see the love that had bloomed between his daughter and the woman whose father had destroyed their family. Emma's dark hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and she wore the simple cotton pajamas that had become so familiar to Logan over the past 6 months. She looked nothing like the calculating seductress his paranoid mind was trying to construct. She looked like what she'd always appeared to be, a gentle soul who'd dedicated her life to caring for children, who'd somehow managed to breathe life back into his hollow home. "She's having good dreams," Emma whispered as Logan stepped closer, her voice carrying the slight accent that he'd never been able to place. "She was laughing in her sleep when I checked on her." Logan's throat tightened. Lily hadn't laughed in her sleep since Sarah died. For 5 years, his daughter's nights had been haunted by the same nightmares that plagued his own. Memories of a mother who'd been there one moment and gone the next, leaving behind only photos and the echo of lullabies that no one else could sing quite right. "You have a gift with her," Logan said quietly, and meant it despite the turmoil churning in his chest. Emma turned to face him, and Logan felt the familiar pull that had been growing stronger every day for months. Her green eyes held a depth that suggested she'd known her own share of loss, her mouth curved in the gentle smile that had first made Lily trust her. At 28, Emma Cross was beautiful in an understated way that had nothing to do with the artificial perfection Logan encountered in his business world and everything to do with authentic warmth. "She makes it easy," Emma replied, reaching out to brush a strand of Logan's dark hair away from his forehead with the casual intimacy that had developed between them. "Lily's such a bright, loving little girl. She just needed someone to see it." The simple touch sent electricity through Logan's nervous system, just as it always did. Emma's hands were soft but strong, capable of soothing Lily's fears and igniting Logan's desire with equal skill. She'd been doing both for weeks now, slowly drawing them into her orbit like a gravitational force neither could resist. "Logan," Emma said softly, studying his face with concern. "Are you okay? You seem tense tonight." Logan forced himself to meet her eyes, wondering what she saw there. Did she recognize the knowledge burning behind his careful facade? Could she sense that everything had changed in the space of a single photograph? "Work stress," he lied smoothly. "The Morrison acquisition is hitting some unexpected complications." Emma's expression softened with sympathy. "You work too hard. When's the last time you took a real break? Did something just for yourself instead of the company?" The question hit Logan unexpectedly hard. When was the last time he'd done anything for himself? Since Sarah's death, his entire existence had revolved around building his financial empire and protecting Lily from a world that had proven itself capable of unthinkable cruelty. He'd turned Wayne Enterprises into a fortress and himself into its solitary guardian, letting no one close enough to matter. Until Emma had arrived with her quiet strength and patient love, making him remember what it felt like to want something beyond survival. I don't remember, Logan admitted, the honesty surprising them both. Emma stepped closer, close enough that he could smell the subtle lavender scent of her shampoo. That's not living, Logan. That's just existing. Maybe existing is enough, Logan replied, but even as he said it, he knew it was no longer true. Emma had shown him the difference between surviving and thriving, between protecting what remained and building something new. No, Emma said firmly, her hand coming up to rest against his chest, directly over his heart. It's not enough. Not for you, and definitely not for Lily. She needs to see her father happy, Logan. She needs to know that losing someone you love doesn't mean you stop living. Logan stared down at her, this woman who spoke about loss with the authority of someone who'd experienced it firsthand. Had Vincent Cross's drinking cost Emma her own family? Had she grown up in the shadow of her father's destructive choices, learning early that love could be ripped away in an instant? The thought should have filled Logan with satisfaction. Karmic justice for the daughter of the man who'd destroyed his world. Instead, he felt an unexpected surge of protectiveness. Whatever Emma's connection to Vincent Cross, whatever secrets she might be keeping, the woman standing before him had spent 6 months healing his family with nothing but patience and love. Emma, Logan said quietly, tell me about your family, your childhood. I realize I know almost nothing about where you came from. Emma's hand stilled against his chest, and Logan felt her entire body tense. It was subtle. Anyone else might have missed it, but Logan had spent 15 years reading microexpressions and body language in boardrooms where fortunes hung on the ability to detect deception. Emma Cross was hiding something significant. There's not much to tell, Emma said carefully, her gaze shifting away from his. I grew up in a small town. Lost my parents when I was young. Spent my teens in foster care, which is where I learned how much children need stability and love. She looked back at him with what appeared to be complete sincerity. Why do you ask? Logan studied her face, searching for cracks in the facade. Emma's backstory was perfectly crafted. Tragic enough to explain her dedication to caring for children, vague enough to discourage follow-up questions. If he hadn't seen that photograph, hadn't received those threatening messages, he would have accepted her explanation without question. I'm falling in love with you, Logan said bluntly, watching Emma's reaction carefully. I want to know everything about the woman who's become so important to my daughter and me. Emma's intake of breath was sharp, audible. Her green eyes widened with what looked like genuine surprise and joy, but Logan caught the flash of something else. Fear? Guilt? Pain? Logan, Emma whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I'm falling in love with you too. Both of you. This family, this home. It's everything I never dared to dream I could have. The words should have filled Logan with happiness. Instead, they increased his sense of unease. Emma's emotion seemed genuine, but there was something carefully controlled about her response, as if she'd rehearsed this moment. But, Logan prompted, sensing there was more. Emma's hands moved to frame his face, her touch gentle but urgent. But I'm scared, Logan. Scared that if you really knew me, knew everything about my past, you might not want me here anymore. Logan's heart hammered against his ribs. Was this her confession? Was Emma about to reveal her connection to Vincent Cross, to explain how the daughter of his enemy had ended up caring for his child? Try me, Logan said softly. Emma opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. Logan watched her internal struggle, the war between honesty and self-preservation playing out across her expressive features. I can't, Emma finally whispered, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. Not yet. Please, Logan, just trust me a little longer? Trust that everything I feel for you and Lily is real, even if there are parts of my past I'm not ready to share. Logan felt his heart breaking as he realized Emma was asking for exactly what he couldn't give. Blind faith in a woman whose very presence in his home might be part of an elaborate revenge scheme. How could he trust her when someone was threatening her life, when mysterious enemies were using her connection to Vincent Cross as a weapon against them both? I want to trust you, Logan said honestly. But trust is earned, Emma. And right now, I feel like I'm falling in love with a ghost. Emma's face crumpled as if he'd struck her. I know how that sounds. I know it's not fair to ask you to love someone who can't be completely honest with you. But Logan, I swear on everything I hold dear, I would never do anything to hurt you or Lily. Whatever secrets I'm keeping, they're not about my feelings for this family. Logan wanted to believe her. God, how he wanted to believe her. But the photograph in his pocket felt like it was burning through his skin, and the threatening messages on his phone served as a constant reminder that nothing about this situation was what it appeared to be. "Daddy!" Both adults turned sharply at the sound of Lily's sleepy voice. Logan's daughter stood in her bedroom doorway, her dark hair, so like Sarah's, tousled from sleep. She wore the purple pajamas Emma had bought her last week, the ones with stars that glowed in the dark. "Hey, sweetheart," Logan said softly, immediately shifting into father mode. "Did we wake you?" "I heard talking," Lily said, rubbing her eyes with small fists. "Are you and Emma fighting?" Logan felt Emma stiffen beside him, and he realized how their intense conversation must have looked to a child. Two adults standing close together, voices low and urgent, emotions running high. "No, baby," Emma said gently, moving toward Lily with the natural grace that had made her such a perfect fit in their home. "Daddy and I were just talking about grown-up things. Nothing for you to worry about. Are you going to leave?" Lily asked, and Logan heard the fear in his daughter's voice that broke his heart. Lily had lost one mother already. The thought of losing Emma too must be terrifying. "I'm not going anywhere," Emma promised, kneeling down to Lily's eye level. "I love you too much to leave, remember? You're stuck with me." Lily giggled despite her sleepiness, throwing her arms around Emma's neck with the complete trust that only children possessed. Logan watched the embrace, seeing the genuine love that flowed between his daughter and the woman who'd become so much more than just their nanny. Whatever Emma's secrets, whatever connection she had to Vincent Cross, one thing was undeniably true. She loved Lily with a fierce protectiveness that couldn't be faked. Logan had seen enough hired caregivers to know the difference between professional competence and maternal instinct. Emma Cross might be hiding the truth about her past, but her love for Lily was absolutely real. "Come on," Emma said, standing and taking Lily's hand. "Let's get you back to bed before you turn into a zombie tomorrow." As Emma led his daughter back into the bedroom, Logan caught sight of something that made his blood run cold. There, on Emma's left wrist, was a small scar he'd never noticed before, thin, precise, and unmistakably the result of a blade. Either Emma Cross had attempted suicide at some point in her past, or someone had tried to kill her. Logan pulled out his phone and reread the threatening messages with new eyes. "Emma's in danger. They're coming for her tomorrow night." What if the mysterious sender wasn't threatening Emma? What if they were warning him? What if someone was using Emma's connection to Vincent Cross to target her for revenge, and Logan was being positioned as her only protection? The pieces were shifting again, rearranging themselves into a pattern that was somehow even more terrifying than his original suspicions. If Emma was a victim rather than a perpetrator, if she'd sought refuge in his home to escape enemies from her father's past, then Logan's discovery of her identity had just put everyone he loved in immediate danger. Because whoever was hunting Emma Cross had just learned that Logan Wayne knew exactly who she was, and they might decide that made him a threat that needed to be eliminated. Logan didn't sleep. By 6 a.m., he'd consumed enough coffee to fuel a small aircraft and assembled a preliminary dossier on Emma Cross that raised more questions than it answered. Her employment history was spotless but sparse, a series of short-term nanny positions with wealthy families who provided glowing references but couldn't be reached for follow-up questions. Her social security number traced to a birth certificate in Ohio, but the hospital where she was supposedly born had burned down in 1998, conveniently destroying all records. Emma Cross existed on paper, but her past was a carefully constructed maze of dead ends and misdirection. The threatening messages had stopped after that first ominous exchange, leaving Logan to wonder if his lack of response had somehow changed the game. He'd considered calling the FBI, hiring private security, even packing up Lily and disappearing until he could sort out the truth. But any dramatic action would alert Emma that something had changed, and Logan wasn't ready to show his hand until he understood exactly what game they were playing. The sound of footsteps on the kitchen stairs interrupted his brooding. Logan quickly closed his laptop and arranged his features into something resembling normalcy as Emma appeared in the doorway, looking fresh and beautiful despite the early hour. "You're up early," Emma said, moving toward the coffee maker with the comfortable familiarity of someone who'd become part of the household rhythm. She wore jeans and a soft green sweater that brought out her eyes, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail that made her look younger and more vulnerable. "Couldn't sleep," Logan replied truthfully. "Too much on my mind." Emma poured herself a cup of coffee and moved to stand beside him at the kitchen island, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her body. 6 months of mornings like this had created a routine that felt natural, domestic, right, until Logan remembered that it might all be an elaborate lie. "Want to talk about it?" Emma asked, her green eyes studying his face with genuine concern. Logan almost laughed at the irony. The one person he most wanted to talk to was the person he could least afford to trust. Just business complications. Nothing that can't be solved with enough time and money. Emma reached out to touch his hand, her fingers cool against his skin. "Logan, I know I don't have any right to give you advice about business, but sometimes the most complicated problems have simple solutions. Maybe you're overthinking things." The words hit Logan like a physical blow. Was Emma trying to tell him something? Was this her way of hinting that the truth was simpler than his paranoid suspicions were making it? Before Logan could respond, the sound of small feet thundering down the stairs announced Lily's arrival. His daughter burst into the kitchen wearing her school uniform and the bright smile that had been absent for so long before Emma entered their lives. "Emma!" Lily launched herself at the woman who'd become her anchor, receiving the warm hug that had become their morning ritual. "Guess what? I dreamed about the story you told me last night. The one about the princess who saved herself." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Emma said, smoothing Lily's dark hair with gentle fingers. "What did the princess do in your dream?" "She built a castle in the clouds where all the sad children could come live and be happy," Lily replied with the boundless imagination of childhood. "And she had a magic garden where nothing bad could ever happen." Emma's expression grew soft with emotion, and Logan caught a glimpse of something almost heartbreaking in her eyes, a longing so deep it made his chest ache. Did Emma dream of safe places too? Was that what she'd been seeking when she came to work for his family? "That sounds like a perfect castle," Emma said quietly. "The princess was very wise to build it." Logan watched this exchange with growing confusion. If Emma was part of some elaborate revenge scheme, if she'd sought out his family to hurt them, why did she seem so genuinely invested in Lily's happiness? Why did her love for his daughter appear so authentic and unguarded? "Daddy, you're staring," Lily observed with the brutal honesty of 6-year-olds. "Are you okay?" Logan forced himself to smile. "I'm fine, princess. Just thinking about how lucky we are to have Emma with us." Emma's cheeks flushed with pleasure, and she looked at Logan with an expression that seemed to hold genuine affection and gratitude. If she was acting, she was the most talented actress he'd ever encountered. Logan's phone buzzed against the counter, and he glanced at the screen expecting another work email. Instead, he found a message that made his blood freeze. "Beautiful family you have, Mr. Wayne. It would be a shame if something happened to any of them. Emma's time is running out. Make your choice." This time, the message was accompanied by a photograph, one that had clearly been taken through his kitchen window just moments ago. Logan, Emma, and Lily were all visible, the image captured with telephoto clarity that suggested professional surveillance equipment. Someone was watching them right now. Logan's eyes darted to the large windows that offered a view of Central Park, scanning for any sign of the photographer. The windows that had always made him feel connected to the city now felt like a vulnerability, a way for enemies to observe his family's most intimate moments. "Logan," Emma's voice was sharp with concern. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Logan realized he was gripping his phone so tightly that his knuckles had gone white. He forced his expression to relax, painfully aware that someone was still watching, still documenting their every move. "Sorry," Logan said, slipping the phone into his pocket. "Just a work crisis that needs immediate attention. I'm going to have to make some calls." Emma nodded understandingly, but Logan caught the flash of something else in her expression, relief? As if his distraction provided her with an opportunity for something. "I'll get Lily ready for school," Emma said quickly. "Take all the time you need." As Emma led Lily toward the stairs, Logan heard his daughter's voice drifting back. "Emma, why does Daddy look scared? Is someone trying to hurt us?" Emma's response was too quiet to hear, but Logan saw her pause on the staircase, her entire body going rigid with what looked like fear. Emma Cross knew they were in danger. The question was whether she was the source of that danger or simply another target. Logan waited until he heard the sound of running water from Lily's bathroom before pulling out his phone and dialing the one person who might have answers. His head of security, a former FBI agent named Jack Shepard who'd been protecting the Wayne family for 3 years. "We have a problem," Logan said the moment Jack answered. "Someone's been watching my home, threatening my family, and I need to know everything there is to know about Emma Cross. I need it today." "Emma Cross." Jack's voice carried surprise. Boss, I ran a full background check on her when you hired her. She came up clean. Run it again, Logan ordered. Dig deeper. Look for connections to a Vincent Cross. He would have been involved in a fatal car accident in New York 15 years ago. And Jack, I need personal protection for Lily immediately. Someone just photographed us through our kitchen window. The line went quiet for a moment. How deep do you want me to dig, Mr. Wayne? Logan thought about Emma's gentle hands soothing Lily's nightmares, about the way she'd brought laughter back into their home, about the love in her eyes when she'd admitted her feelings for him. Then he thought about the scar on her wrist, about the messages threatening his family, about the photograph that connected her to the man who'd destroyed his world. All the way to the bottom, Logan said firmly. Whatever it costs, whatever laws we have to bend, I want to know everything. Emma Cross's real identity, her connection to Vincent Cross, and who's threatening my family because of her presence in my home. I'll have preliminary results by noon, Jack promised. And Mr. Wayne, until we know what we're dealing with, maybe you should consider sending Lily to stay with your sister in London. Logan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of impossible choices pressing down on him. Send Lily away, and he'd be admitting that Emma's presence had put his daughter in danger. Keep her close, and he might be risking her life to protect a woman who'd already betrayed his trust in the most fundamental way possible. Not yet, Logan said. But have the jet ready. If this situation escalates, I want to be able to get Lily to safety immediately. Logan hung up and stood alone in his kitchen, surrounded by the domestic normalcy that Emma had helped him build. Coffee cups in the sink, Lily's artwork on the refrigerator, the subtle scent of lavender that had become so familiar he barely noticed it anymore. Upstairs, he could hear Emma and Lily getting ready for school, their voices mixing in the easy rhythm of two people who genuinely cared about each other. Whatever secrets Emma was keeping, whatever danger she'd brought into their lives, one thing remained undeniably true. She loved his daughter with a fierce protectiveness that couldn't be manufactured. But love, Logan had learned, wasn't always enough to overcome the wounds of the past. Sometimes love was just another weapon, and the people who wielded it most skillfully were the ones capable of inflicting the deepest damage. As Emma and Lily came back downstairs, both of them chattering about the day ahead, Logan made a decision that would either save his family or destroy it completely. He was going to trust Emma Cross with the truth about what he'd discovered. And then he was going to find out whether the woman he'd fallen in love with was the answer to his prayers or his worst nightmare come to life. The car ride to Lily's private school was unusually quiet, tension crackling between the front seats while 6-year-old Lily chattered obliviously in the back. Logan kept checking the mirrors for signs of surveillance, his security training from years of corporate threats automatically engaging as he navigated Manhattan traffic. Emma sat beside him, her hands folded tightly in her lap, periodically glancing at him with growing concern. Logan could feel her watching him, could sense that she knew something fundamental had shifted between them since last night. "Daddy, are you and Emma having a fight?" Lily asked from her car seat, her voice carrying the worry that children absorbed from adult tension, even when they couldn't understand its source. "No, sweetheart," Logan replied, meeting his daughter's eyes in the rearview mirror. "Sometimes grown-ups just have serious things to think about." "Like when Mommy was sick?" Lily asked quietly. Logan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Lily had been barely a year old when Sarah died, too young to remember much, but somehow she'd absorbed the knowledge that serious conversations between adults often preceded loss and change. "Not like that," Emma said quickly, turning in her seat to look at Lily directly. "Your daddy just has some work problems to solve. Nothing that affects how much we love you." Logan felt a stab of something that might have been gratitude, or might have been pain. Even now, even with secrets hanging between them like a loaded gun, Emma's first instinct was to comfort his daughter. They reached the school, an exclusive institution surrounded by stone walls and security gates that had always made Logan feel like Lily was safe from the dangers of the outside world. Today, the barriers felt inadequate against threats he couldn't even identify. "I'll walk her in," Emma said, already unbuckling her seatbelt. "No," Logan said quickly. "I'll do it." Emma paused, her hand on the door handle. "Logan, what's going on? You're acting like you think someone's going to snatch her from the playground." Logan met her eyes, seeing genuine confusion and growing fear there. Either Emma was truly innocent of whatever game was being played, or she was a master manipulator capable of projecting perfect concern while plotting his family's destruction. "Maybe someone is," Logan said quietly. Emma went pale. "What do you mean?" Before Logan could answer, Lily piped up from the back seat. Are there bad guys trying to get me? Like in the movies? Logan cursed himself for letting his paranoia frighten his daughter. No, princess. Daddy's just being extra careful because he loves you so much. But as Logan walked Lily to her classroom, he found himself scanning faces and noting exit routes with the hypervigilance of someone who knew that safety was an illusion that could be shattered without warning. He spoke briefly with Lily's teacher, Mrs. Henderson, about pickup protocols and emergency contacts, trying to sound casual while establishing additional security measures. Daddy, Lily said as he knelt down to hug her goodbye, I think Emma is sad. Her eyes look the way mine did when I missed Mommy. Logan's chest tightened. His 6-year-old daughter, with the emotional intelligence children developed when they'd experienced loss, had recognized something in Emma that Logan's anger and suspicion had blinded him to. Emma Cross wasn't just keeping secrets. She was in pain. Logan returned to the car to find Emma staring out the window, her profile etched with an expression of such profound sadness that it took his breath away. This wasn't the face of a calculating seductress or a revenge-seeking daughter. This was the face of someone carrying burdens too heavy for her shoulders. Emma, Logan said softly as he started the car. We need to talk. Emma nodded without turning to look at him. I know. I've been dreading this conversation since the day I walked into your home. The admission hit Logan like a physical blow. You've been expecting to be discovered? Hoping to avoid it, Emma corrected quietly. But knowing it was inevitable. People like me don't get to disappear completely, Logan. The past always catches up eventually. People like me. What did that mean? Logan navigated through traffic while his mind raced through possibilities. Was Emma in witness protection? Was she running from an abusive relationship? Had she committed some crime that forced her into hiding? Tell me, Logan said simply. Emma was quiet for so long that Logan thought she might refuse. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. My father killed your wife. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Logan felt the world tilt around him as Emma confirmed what he'd suspected but hoped against. She knew. She'd always known. Vincent Cross was my father, Emma continued, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. He was a drunk and a coward and a man who destroyed everything he touched, including his own daughter. Logan pulled over to the side of the road, his hands shaking too badly to drive safely. They sat in the car while traffic moved around them, two people surrounded by the ruins of what might have been love. You knew who I was when you applied for this job, Logan said, his voice hollow. Yes. You came here deliberately. You sought out my family. Yes. Why? The question came out as barely more than a whisper. Emma turned to look at him, her green eyes bright with tears and something that looked like relief. Because I've been trying to find a way to tell you the truth for 15 years, and I thought if you could see who I really was, if you could know me as a person instead of just Vincent Cross's daughter, maybe you could find a way to forgive me for what he took from you. Logan stared at her, his mind struggling to process the magnitude of what she was saying. You've been looking for me for 15 years? I was 13 when my father killed your wife, Emma said quietly. 13 years old and already ashamed of the man who was supposed to protect me. When he came home that night, covered in blood and reeking of alcohol, I knew something terrible had happened. The police came the next morning. Emma's voice grew stronger as she continued, as if finally telling the truth was lifting a weight from her shoulders. I read every newspaper article about the accident. I memorized your wife's name, your daughter's age, the details of the life my father had destroyed. I became obsessed with the family he'd hurt, the survivors he'd left behind. She wiped tears from her cheeks with the back of her hand. I wanted to apologize, to somehow make amends, but how do you approach someone and say, I'm sorry my father murdered your pregnant wife and unborn child? Logan felt like he was drowning in revelation and grief and a strange kind of relief. Emma's presence in his home hadn't been part of some elaborate revenge scheme. It had been an attempt at redemption, a young woman's desperate effort to somehow balance the scales her father had tipped toward tragedy. So you became a nanny, Logan said slowly. You dedicated your life to caring for children because you couldn't save the child my father took from me. I wanted to understand what Sarah was like, Emma admitted. What kind of mother she would have been. What kind of family she was building with you. I thought if I could learn to love children the way she must have loved yours, maybe I could honor her memory instead of just carrying the guilt. Logan's anger was transforming into something more complex, a mixture of grief and understanding and a terrible kind of recognition. Emma Cross had spent 15 years trying to atone for sins that weren't hers, carrying guilt that belonged to a man who'd escaped justice. The other families you worked for? All families affected by drunk drivers, Emma confirmed. I sought them out specifically. I wanted to understand the long-term impact, the way tragedy reshapes a household. I wanted to learn how to help children heal from losses they didn't deserve. Logan thought about Emma's references, the glowing recommendations from families he couldn't reach. They knew who you were, who your father was. Some of them. Others never learned the connection. But the ones who knew, they understood why I needed to help. Why I needed to prove that Vincent Cross's daughter could create healing instead of destruction. Emma's voice broke completely as she continued. Logan, I know there's no excuse for deceiving you. I know you have every right to hate me for bringing my father's legacy into your home. But I swear on everything I hold sacred, I never meant to fall in love with you. I never meant to make Lily love me back. I just wanted to help you both heal, and then I was going to disappear before you could learn the truth. Logan sat in stunned silence, processing the implications of Emma's confession. She'd come to them not as an enemy but as a penitent, seeking to make amends for crimes she'd witnessed but not committed. The woman he'd fallen in love with was real, but she was also a living reminder of the worst night of his life. Someone knows, Logan said quietly. Someone's been threatening you. Threatening my family. Emma's face went white. What do you mean? Logan pulled out his phone and showed her the messages, watching as she read each threatening text with growing horror. I don't understand, Emma whispered. Who would? She stopped abruptly, her face draining of color as understanding dawned. Oh God, they found me. Who found you? Emma's hands were shaking as she stared at the phone screen. The people who wanted my father dead. The families he'd hurt before he killed your wife. They've been looking for him for 15 years, and when they couldn't find him, she looked at Logan with naked terror in her eyes. They decided his daughter would have to pay for his crimes instead. Logan felt pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. The surveillance, the threats, the timing. Someone had been tracking Emma, waiting for the right moment to exact revenge against Vincent Cross through his daughter. And Logan's family had become collateral damage in a war that started the night his wife died. How long have you known they were looking for you? Logan asked. I've been running from them for 2 years, Emma admitted. Ever since they found my last placement. The Morrison family in Chicago, they received threats, photos, evidence that their nanny was Vincent Cross's daughter. I had to disappear in the middle of the night to protect them. Logan's mind raced through implications and possibilities. That's why your references can't be reached. That's why your background is so carefully constructed. You're not just hiding from these people. You're actively being hunted by them. I thought I could hide long enough to complete my mission, Emma said desperately. I thought if I could help you and Lily heal, if I could prove that I was different from my father, maybe the guilt would finally stop eating me alive. But they're too good at tracking me. Too persistent. What do they want? Emma's voice was barely audible. They want me to experience what their families experienced. They want me to love someone and then watch that person die because of Vincent Cross's legacy. Logan felt ice flooding his veins as he understood the true scope of the threat. The people hunting Emma hadn't just found her. They'd waited until she'd built the connections that would make her punishment complete. They wanted her to love Logan and Lily, wanted her to create the family bonds that would make their destruction devastating. They're not after my money or my business, Logan said with horrible clarity. They're after Emma. And they're using my family as the weapon to hurt her. Emma nodded miserably. I should have left the moment I started caring about you both. I should have disappeared before anyone got hurt. But I was selfish, Logan. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. I felt like I was part of a real family instead of just someone trying to earn forgiveness that would never come. Logan looked at this woman who'd spent 15 years carrying guilt that wasn't hers, trying to atone for a father's sins by dedicating her life to healing the wounds he'd caused. Emma Cross wasn't his enemy. She was another victim of Vincent Cross's choices, a daughter who'd been paying for her father's crimes since she was 13 years old. But understanding Emma's motives didn't change the immediate reality. Someone was hunting her, and they were willing to destroy Logan's family to complete their revenge. The messages said they're coming for you tomorrow night, Logan said grimly. We have less than 24 hours to figure out how to protect everyone I care about. Emma looked at him with something that might have been hope. Everyone you care about? Logan reached out to touch her face, his thumb brushing away tears that had been 15 years in the making. Emma, your father's choices don't define who you are. What you've done for Lily, what you've brought into our lives, that's real. That's yours, not his. But the danger? The danger exists whether you stay or go, Logan interrupted. If you run now, they'll just follow you to your next hiding place and hurt another family. But if we face this together, you'd do that? Emma asked, her voice filled with disbelief. You'd protect the daughter of the man who killed your wife. Logan thought about Lily's laughter echoing through rooms that had been silent for too long. He thought about mornings in the kitchen, watching Emma braid his daughter's hair with maternal tenderness. He thought about the love in Emma's eyes when she'd confessed her feelings, and the courage it had taken for her to spend 15 years trying to make amends for sins that weren't hers. I'd protect the woman who gave my daughter back her smile, Logan said firmly. I'd protect the person who taught us both how to live again instead of just survive. Emma collapsed against him, her body shaking with relief and terror and something that might have been love. As Logan held her in his arms, he felt the final pieces of his heart clicking back into place. Not healed, exactly, but transformed into something new and stronger. Tomorrow, they would face enemies who wanted to destroy their family in the name of justice that had been perverted into revenge. Tonight, they would plan their survival together. But first, Logan had one more question that needed answering. Emma, he said quietly, your father, Vincent Cross. Where is he now? Emma pulled back to look at him, her expression growing complex with old pain and complicated emotions. He's dead, Logan. He died in prison 3 years ago. She paused, gathering courage. But before he died, he asked me to deliver something to you. Something I've been carrying for years, waiting for the right moment to give it to you. As Emma reached into her purse to pull out a sealed envelope with Logan's name written in shaky handwriting, he realized their story was about to take another turn that would either redeem the past or destroy any chance they had at a future. The dead, it seemed, still had secrets to reveal. Logan's hands trembled as he opened the envelope Emma had been carrying for 3 years, the paper yellowed with age and worn from countless careful handlings. Inside was a letter written in Vincent Cross's uncertain script, along with a small brass key and a photograph that made Logan's breath catch in his throat. The photograph was of Sarah, but it wasn't one Logan recognized. In it, his wife was standing outside a small cafe, laughing at something off camera, her hand resting on her pregnant belly. She looked radiant, alive, completely unaware that her life would end just hours after the image was captured. Where did this come from? Logan asked, his voice rough with emotion. Emma's face was pale but resolute. Read the letter first. Please. Logan unfolded the pages, recognizing the institutional paper that suggested prison correspondence. Vincent Cross's handwriting was shaky but legible, the words of a dying man trying to make amends for unforgivable sins. Asterisk Mr. Wayne. I am dying in a place where dying feels like the first honest thing I've done in years. The cancer is eating through my liver, which seems fitting for a man whose drinking destroyed so many lives. I know this letter will never undo what I took from you, but there are things you need to know about the night I killed your wife and unborn son. Asterisk. Logan's vision blurred, but he forced himself to continue reading. Asterisk I was drunk, yes. Blackout drunk. The way I'd been every night for months after losing my job and watching my marriage fall apart. But Mr. Wayne, the accident wasn't random. I was supposed to be somewhere that night, and your wife was never supposed to be on that road. Asterisk. What does he mean? Logan asked, looking up at Emma with confusion. Emma's eyes were bright with tears. Keep reading. It gets worse before it makes sense. Asterisk someone paid me to be at that intersection at exactly 11:23 p.m. They said I was supposed to hit a black sedan carrying corporate documents that could destroy their business. They gave me $5,000 and told me to make it look like an accident, make it look like drunk driving. I was supposed to die in the crash too, a murder-suicide that would be blamed on my alcoholism. Asterisk. Logan felt the world tilting around him as he processed the implications. Vincent Cross was hired to commit murder? But something went wrong, Emma said quietly. Keep reading. Asterisk I was too drunk to read the license plate clearly. In the dark, with the rain, I hit the wrong car. Your wife's silver sedan instead of the black one I was supposed to target. The people who hired me were furious. They'd paid for a specific death, and I'd killed the wrong person entirely. They told me to take the fall for drunk driving, promised to take care of my daughter if I kept quiet about the contract. Asterisk. Logan's hands were shaking so violently he could barely hold the letter. Sarah's death hadn't been a random tragedy caused by a drunk driver's poor judgment. It had been a botched assassination, a murder-for-hire gone wrong that had killed his innocent wife instead of whoever the real target was supposed to be. Asterisk, they never paid me the rest of the money. Never took care of Emma like they promised. Instead, they've been hunting us both for 15 years, trying to tie up loose ends. Mr. Wayne, my daughter has been paying for my sins her whole life, but the sins go deeper than you know. The people who wanted someone dead that night are still out there, still killing, still destroying families to protect their secrets. Asterisk. Emma was crying openly now. Logan, I've known about the contract since my father confessed it to me on his deathbed. But I never knew who the real target was supposed to be until 6 months ago. How did you find out? Emma reached into her purse again, pulling out a folder thick with documents. Because the same people who hired my father to commit murder 15 years ago tried to hire someone else to kill the same person 6 months ago. She opened the folder, revealing corporate documents, financial records, and surveillance photographs that made Logan's blood run cold. The target was you, Logan. 15 years ago, someone wanted Logan Wayne dead. When my father killed Sarah instead, they decided to wait and try again. But by then, you'd become too powerful, too well protected. So they've been looking for another way to destroy you. Logan stared at the documents Emma had compiled. Evidence of a conspiracy that stretched back 15 years. A patient enemy who'd been waiting for the perfect opportunity to complete a contract that had never been fulfilled. Who? Logan asked, though part of him already suspected the answer. Emma pulled out a photograph of a man Logan recognized immediately, Harrison Thorne, his former business partner and the one person who'd stood to gain everything if Logan had died 15 years ago. Harrison wanted Wayne Enterprises, Emma said. But your partnership agreement specified that if either partner died, their shares would go to their surviving spouse or children, not to the surviving partner. He needed you dead before Sarah gave birth, before your son could inherit your portion of the company. Logan felt rage building in his chest, white-hot and pure. Harrison Thorne had orchestrated Sarah's death to steal his business empire. The man he'd trusted as a partner, the person who'd comforted him after Sarah's funeral, had been the architect of his family's destruction. When my father killed Sarah instead of you, Harrison's plan fell apart, Emma continued. Sarah died, but you survived, and Lily inherited her mother's share of Wayne Enterprises. Harrison spent years trying to find another way to get control of the company, but you'd become too powerful. So he decided to use you instead, Logan said with horrible understanding. He's been tracking me for 2 years, ever since he learned that Vincent Cross had a daughter who might know about the original contract. He wanted to use me to get close to you, to find another way to destroy your family and claim what he thinks is rightfully his. Logan thought about the threatening messages, the surveillance, the careful manipulation that had led Emma into his home. Harrison orchestrated everything. He's the one who's been hunting you, threatening my family. Not just threatening, Emma said quietly. Planning. Logan, I found evidence that he's hired the same contract killer who was supposed to finish you 6 months ago. The man who failed then is coming for your family tomorrow night. Logan's phone rang at that moment, the sound sharp in the tense silence of the car. He glanced at the screen and felt his blood freeze. Harrison Thorne's name was displayed, as if the man had sensed that his secrets were being revealed. Answer it, Emma said urgently. But Logan, he can't know that you know the truth. If he realizes we've figured out his plan, he'll move up his timeline. He'll go after Lily immediately. Logan accepted the call, forcing his voice to sound normal despite the rage churning in his chest. Harrison, what can I do for you? Logan, my friend. Harrison's voice was warm, friendly, completely at odds with the monster Emma had just revealed him to be. I hope you don't mind me calling so early, but I have some concerning news about your daughter's nanny. What kind of news? Well, it's a bit delicate. I've been doing some research on Emma Cross at the request of a mutual acquaintance, and I'm afraid what I've discovered is quite disturbing. It seems Ms. Cross has been using false credentials to gain employment with wealthy families. She's apparently the daughter of a convicted felon. Logan met Emma's eyes, seeing the pain there as she listened to Harrison weaponize her father's crimes. That's quite an accusation, Harrison. What evidence do you have? I'm sending you a file right now. Logan, I'm genuinely concerned for your family's safety. Ms. Cross may not be the innocent nanny she appears to be. In fact, there's evidence suggesting she's been specifically targeting families like yours, successful businessmen with young daughters. Logan's phone chimed with an incoming message containing what appeared to be a detailed dossier on Emma Cross. He scrolled through it quickly, recognizing it as a masterful piece of manipulation. Every fact technically true, but presented in the most damaging possible context. "I appreciate your concern," Logan said carefully. "What do you think I should do?" "Terminate her employment immediately," Harrison said without hesitation. "And Logan, given the potential danger to Lily, you might want to consider sending her to stay with your sister in London until this situation is resolved." There it was, the suggestion that would separate Logan from his daughter, leaving them both vulnerable to Harrison's final move. If Logan sent Lily away, Harrison could eliminate both Logan and Emma without risking harm to an innocent child who might witness his crimes. That might be wise, Logan agreed, hating himself for the lie but knowing their survival depended on Harrison believing his plan was working. "I'll call my sister today." "Excellent. And Logan, be very careful around Ms. Cross until she's out of your home. People with her background can be unpredictable when they feel cornered." As Logan hung up, Emma was staring at him with a mixture of admiration and terror. "He's making his final move. Getting you to send Lily away, planting seeds of distrust about me, positioning himself to swoop in and save the day when his hired killer fails to eliminate you both." Logan started the car, his mind racing through contingencies and escape plans. He's not going to win this time. "But Emma, I need you to know, whatever happens tomorrow night, whatever we have to do to protect Lily, you're not responsible for any of this. Harrison Thorne has been the enemy all along. Your father was just another one of his victims." Emma reached for his hand, interlacing their fingers with desperate urgency. "Logan, there's something else in my father's letter. Something about the key he included." Logan looked at the small brass key Vincent Cross had sent. "What's it for?" "A storage unit in Queens. My father hid evidence there before he was arrested. Documentation about the contract, recordings of his conversations with Harrison, proof that Sarah's death was murder for hire." Emma's voice grew stronger with determination. "He wanted you to have it all. Every piece of evidence needed to destroy the man who killed your family." Logan felt something shifting inside his chest, not healing exactly, but a transformation of grief into purpose. For 15 years, he'd carried guilt and rage with nowhere to direct it except at a dead drunk driver and his own inability to protect his family. Now he finally had a target worthy of his fury and the evidence to destroy the man who'd orchestrated everything. "We're going to end this," Logan said firmly. "Harrison Thorne has been playing a 15-year game of chess, but he's about to discover that his final move put his own king in check." Emma squeezed his hand tighter. Together, Logan brought her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Together. But first, we need to get Lily to safety and collect every piece of evidence your father left behind." As they drove toward Lily's school, Logan felt the weight of revelation and determination settling around them. Tomorrow night, they would face the man who destroyed their families in pursuit of wealth and power. But tonight, they would prepare for war. And this time, Logan Wayne wasn't going to let anyone he loved become collateral damage in another man's ambition. "Hi everyone. Can you feel the tension building? We're at the midpoint where everything Logan thought he knew has been turned upside down. Drop a comment and let me know, are you team Emma and Logan fighting together, or do you think there are still more secrets to uncover? And don't forget to subscribe, because what happens next will determine whether love can truly conquer a 15-year quest for revenge. The real enemy has finally revealed himself, but the war is far from over." The storage unit facility in Queens felt like a graveyard at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, rows of identical metal doors stretching into shadows that seemed to harbor threats Logan couldn't identify. Emma walked beside him, Vincent Cross's brass key clutched in her trembling fingers as they searched for Unit 247. "There," Emma said, pointing to a door halfway down the third row. "That's it." Logan checked his phone for the 10th time in 5 minutes, making sure his security chief Jack Shepard knew their location. The plan was simple: collect Vincent's evidence, return home to secure Lily, then present everything to the FBI before Harrison could make his move. But standing in the claustrophobic maze of storage units, Logan felt exposed and vulnerable in ways his Manhattan penthouse had never prepared him for. Emma inserted the key with shaking hands, and the lock clicked open with a sound that seemed to echo through the empty facility. Inside the unit, cardboard boxes were stacked floor to ceiling, each one labeled with dates spanning 15 years of Vincent Cross's attempts at documentation and redemption. My father was meticulous, Emma said softly, running her fingers along the nearest box. Even drunk, even dying, he kept records of everything. He knew someone would need proof eventually. Logan opened the first box, revealing audio cassettes, photographs, and handwritten notes that painted a picture of Harrison Thorne as a methodical sociopath willing to commit any crime for financial gain. There were recordings of Harrison discussing the contract on Logan's life, photographs of meetings with the hired killer, even financial records showing payments made to Vincent Cross. This is enough to put Harrison away for life, Logan said, photographing each document with his phone. Even if we can't prove he killed Sarah directly, the conspiracy charges alone. The sound of footsteps outside the storage unit made both Logan and Emma freeze. Heavy boots on concrete, moving with military precision, getting closer. Did Jack say he was sending backup? Emma whispered. Logan's blood turned to ice. No, he's coordinating with the FBI, not coming here himself. The footsteps stopped directly outside their unit. Logan moved protectively in front of Emma, his mind racing through escape routes that didn't exist. They were trapped in a metal box with only one exit, surrounded by evidence that could save or damn them depending on who wanted it more. Mr. Wayne, a voice called from outside, cultured, professional, completely unfamiliar. I believe you have something that belongs to my employer. Would you be so kind as to step outside so we can discuss this like civilized people? Logan met Emma's terrified eyes, seeing his own fear reflected there. Harrison had found them. Somehow, despite all their precautions, he'd tracked them to Vincent Cross's storage unit and sent his hired killer to clean up 15 years of loose ends. I'm afraid that's not going to happen, Logan called back, his voice steadier than he felt. Whatever Harrison is paying you, I can double it. Laughter echoed through the storage facility, cold, amused, completely without warmth. Mr. Thorne thought you might say that. He asked me to inform you that your daughter is currently enjoying an impromptu play date at his estate. Such a charming little girl. It would be a shame if anything happened to her because her father made poor choices. Emma's sharp intake of breath was like a knife through Logan's chest. Lily. Harrison had taken Lily. Proof of life, Logan demanded, his voice tight with controlled rage. A phone rang outside the unit, and Logan heard Lily's voice, frightened but alive, saying, Daddy? The nice man says you need to come get me. I'm scared, Daddy. Where's Emma? The call ended abruptly, leaving Logan and Emma staring at each other in horror. Harrison had crossed the ultimate line, involving an innocent child in his quest for revenge and profit. Here's what's going to happen, the voice outside continued. Ms. Cross is going to step out first, hands visible, no sudden movements. Then you, Mr. Wayne, will follow with whatever evidence your former partner left behind. You'll both come with me to resolve this situation once and for all. And if we refuse? Logan asked, though he already knew the answer. Then your daughter learns what it feels like to lose someone she loves, just like Ms. Cross did 15 years ago. Emma was already moving toward the door, her face pale but determined. We don't have a choice, Logan. I won't let him hurt Lily because of my father's sins. Logan caught her arm, stopping her. Emma, once we step outside, we're dead. Harrison can't afford to leave witnesses alive. Then we find another way to save her, Emma said fiercely. But I won't abandon that little girl. I've spent 15 years trying to atone for what my father took from your family. I'm not going to let Harrison take what's left. Logan looked at this woman who'd carried guilt that wasn't hers for half her life, who'd dedicated herself to healing wounds she'd never caused, who was now willing to die to protect his daughter from a monster who'd already destroyed too many lives. There might be another way, Logan said quietly, pulling out his phone. But you have to trust me. Logan's fingers moved quickly across the screen, sending a message to Jack Shepard with their exact location and the code phrase they'd established years ago for maximum emergency response. Then he opened another app, one connected to the security system at his penthouse, where cameras and recording equipment had been documenting everything for months. What are you doing? Emma asked. Creating evidence, Logan replied. And hoping my daughter is braver than any 6-year-old should have to be. Logan stepped toward the storage unit door, his voice carrying clearly to whoever waited outside. We're coming out, but I want to hear my daughter's voice again first. You're in no position to make demands, Mr. Wayne. Actually, I am, Logan said with sudden confidence. Because Harrison Thorne has just kidnapped the daughter of one of the most powerful men in New York, and every security camera in my building has been recording since you took her. You might kill us, but you'll never escape what comes next. Silence outside the unit. Then the sound of a phone dialing. Uncle Harrison says to tell you he loves me and he's taking care of me. Lily's voice came through clearly, but Logan caught something else. The subtle stress pattern Lily used when she was lying to protect herself, a survival skill he'd never wanted her to need. Uncle Harrison? When did Harrison Thorne become your uncle, princess? Logan asked carefully. Since Mommy died and you needed help, Lily replied, and Logan's heart broke at the innocent way she'd been manipulated into Harrison's web of lies. But there was something else in Lily's voice, a tremor that suggested she wasn't completely fooled by Harrison's performance. His daughter was scared, but she was also smart enough to know something was wrong. Lily, Logan said clearly, hoping she would remember the safety protocols they'd practiced. Do you remember the special game we played? The one where you hide in Mommy's secret place until Daddy comes to find you. I remember, Lily said, and Logan caught the shift in her tone that suggested understanding. The call ended abruptly, and the voice outside the storage unit turned cold with suspicion. What game, Mr. Wayne? Logan and Emma stepped out of the unit together, hands raised, facing a man in an expensive suit who looked like he belonged in a boardroom rather than a storage facility. The professional appearance made him somehow more terrifying. This was Harrison's final solution, polished and perfect and utterly without conscience. The game where my daughter hides in her mother's old panic room while the building's security system alerts the FBI to a kidnapping in progress, Logan said calmly. The game where a 6-year-old girl proves she's braver than the coward who's been trying to kill me for 15 years. The killer's face shifted from confidence to uncertainty. You're bluffing. Call Harrison and ask him, Logan suggested. Ask him if he found my daughter exactly where he left her, or if she's currently locked behind reinforced steel in a room designed to keep her safe from exactly this kind of threat. Emma was staring at Logan with amazement and hope. Lily's not at Harrison's estate? Lily's in Sarah's panic room, surrounded by enough security to protect a head of state, with Jack Shepard and half the NYPD already en route to Harrison's location, Logan said with grim satisfaction. The only question now is whether this gentleman wants to be arrested for attempted murder, or actually commit murder and face the death penalty. The killer's phone was ringing before Logan finished speaking, and Logan could hear Harrison's voice even from several feet away, high-pitched, panicked, completely different from the controlled manipulator who'd been orchestrating their destruction. She's gone, Harrison's voice carried clearly through the phone. The little girl is gone. The panic room is sealed, and there are federal agents surrounding the building. Logan watched the killer's professional composure crumble as he realized his carefully planned operation had become a trap that was closing around him and his employer. This isn't over, the man said, backing toward the exit with his gun still drawn. Yes, it is, Emma said quietly, stepping forward with a courage that took Logan's breath away. It's been over since the night my father killed Sarah instead of Logan. You've spent 15 years trying to finish a job that was doomed from the moment Harrison underestimated the love between a husband and wife. The killer turned to run, but the sound of sirens was already echoing through the storage facility. Jack Shepard and his team had surrounded the building, cutting off every escape route with the precision of professionals who'd been waiting years for this moment. As federal agents flooded the facility and arrested Harrison's hired killer, Logan pulled Emma into his arms, holding her tight against his chest while she shook with relief and residual terror. Is it over? Emma asked, her voice muffled against his shoulder. The immediate threat is over, Logan replied. But Harrison's still out there. Still free. Still dangerous until we can prove what he's done. Emma pulled back to look at him, her green eyes bright with determination despite the tears streaming down her face. Then we finish this. We use my father's evidence to destroy the man who's been destroying families for 15 years. Logan cupped her face in his hands, amazed by the strength of this woman who'd spent her life carrying guilt that belonged to others. Emma, you know this could be dangerous. Harrison's desperate now, cornered. People like him are most dangerous when they have nothing left to lose. People like us are most dangerous when we have everything to fight for, Emma corrected. I have you. I have Lily. I have a family worth protecting, and a father's sins to finally put to rest. Logan kissed her then, surrounded by federal agents and evidence boxes and the wreckage of Harrison Thorne's 15-year plan. It was a kiss that tasted like hope and determination and the promise that they would face whatever came next together. But as they rode back to Manhattan in the back of a federal vehicle, Logan's phone buzzed with one final message from Harrison Thorne. You think you've won, but this game isn't over. I built an empire on your wife's grave, and I'll burn it all down before I let you take it from me. See you tomorrow, old friend. One way or another, this ends where it began. Logan showed the message to Emma, watching her face harden with resolve. Where did it begin? Emma asked. Logan's expression grew grim as he recognized the location Harrison was referencing. Wayne Enterprises. The building where Harrison and I started our partnership. Where we planned to change the world together before he decided he'd rather rule it alone. Emma squeezed his hand tighter. Then that's where we end it. Together. As their convoy moved through Queens toward Manhattan, Logan felt the weight of 15 years of grief and rage transforming into something sharper and more focused. Tomorrow, he would face the man who'd murdered his wife and stolen his daughter's mother. But this time, he wouldn't be facing Harrison alone. This time, he had Emma Cross beside him, a woman forged in the fires of inherited guilt and transformed into an instrument of justice that Harrison Thorne had never seen coming. The war that began with Sarah Wayne's death was finally approaching its end, and Logan Wayne intended to make sure justice was served not just for his family, but for every life Harrison Thorne had destroyed in his quest for power. Logan's penthouse felt like a fortress under siege as federal agents coordinated with his security team to plan the final confrontation with Harrison Thorne. Emma sat beside Lily on the living room floor, both of them working on a puzzle while pretending that their world wasn't about to explode around them. But Logan could see the tension in Emma's shoulders, the careful way she avoided looking toward the windows that offered a panoramic view of the city where their enemy was plotting his final move. "Daddy," Lily said quietly, not looking up from the puzzle pieces, "is the bad man really going to try to hurt us?" Logan knelt down beside his daughter, marveling at her resilience and hating that she'd been forced to develop it so young. "Some bad people might try, Princess. But you know what? We have lots of good people working to keep us safe." "Like Emma?" Lily asked, reaching for Emma's hand with the casual trust that had defined their relationship from the beginning. "Especially like Emma," Logan confirmed, meeting Emma's eyes over his daughter's head. Jack Shepard approached from the command center they'd established in Logan's home office, his expression grim but determined. "We've got surveillance on Harrison's building, his home, and his known associates. But he's not making this easy for us." "What do you mean?" Emma asked. "Harrison's locked down Wayne Enterprises. He's fired all security, dismissed the cleaning staff, even sent home his personal assistants. The building is essentially empty except for him and whoever he's got helping him." Logan felt a chill of recognition. "He's recreating the night he hired Vincent to kill me. Same building, same isolation, same desperation to eliminate threats to his empire. But this time, you know he's coming," Emma pointed out. "This time he's cornered," Jack corrected. "Which makes him more dangerous than ever." "Logan, I have to ask, are you sure you want to do this? We could wait, let the FBI build their case, arrest him when he's not expecting it." Logan looked around his home, at Lily coloring beside Emma, at the evidence boxes containing 15 years of Vincent Cross's meticulous documentation, at the life he'd built in the shadow of tragedy and loss. Harrison Thorne had stolen Sarah's life and spent 15 years trying to destroy everything Logan had built in her memory. "I'm not hiding anymore," Logan said firmly. "Harrison wants to finish what he started 15 years ago. Fine. But this time, he's going to face me knowing exactly what he's done and exactly what it cost." Emma stood, moving to stand beside Logan with the quiet determination that had carried her through 15 years of guilt and redemption. "We're going to face him. Together." "Emma, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," Emma interrupted. "My father started this when he took Harrison's money and got behind the wheel drunk. I'm going to finish it by making sure Harrison pays for every life he's destroyed." Logan felt something clicking into place inside his chest. Not healing, exactly, but a sense of righteous purpose that felt like Sarah's spirit guiding him toward justice. For 15 years, he'd carried guilt about not being able to protect his wife. Now he had a chance to protect the family that had grown from that loss. "What's the plan?" Logan asked Jack. "Harrison's demanded a meeting tomorrow night at Wayne Enterprises. Just you alone, in the conference room where you two first planned your partnership." Jack pulled out building schematics, pointing to the 60th floor. He's chosen the location carefully. One way in, one way out, complete control over the environment. "It's a trap," Emma said immediately. "Of course it's a trap," Logan agreed. "But it's also an opportunity. Harrison thinks he's luring me to my death. Instead, we're going to give him exactly what he deserves." Jack spread out surveillance photos of the Wayne Enterprises building, marking entry and exit points with red ink. Here's what we know. Harrison's hired at least 3 more professionals to replace the one we arrested today. They're positioned throughout the building, ready to eliminate any threat to his final plan. Which is what exactly? Emma asked. Logan studied the photos, recognition dawning with horrible clarity. He's going to kill me in the same building where we started our partnership, then claim I committed suicide out of guilt for some imagined corporate crime. He'll position himself as the grieving partner forced to take control of Wayne Enterprises to protect our investors. And Emma? Jack prompted. Collateral damage, Logan said grimly. A disturbed nanny who tried to protect her employer and died in the process. Harrison's story will be that Emma's connection to Vincent Cross finally drove her to violence, and he was forced to defend himself. Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing the scope of Harrison's final manipulation. He's not just trying to kill us. He's trying to rewrite history, to make himself the hero of a story where he's actually the villain. That's exactly what he's doing, Logan confirmed. But there's something Harrison doesn't know. Logan pulled out his phone and showed them a video call interface displaying a familiar face. Special Agent Sarah Chun from the FBI's Corporate Crimes Division. Agent Chun, Logan said, we're ready to proceed with Operation Vindication. Confirmed, Mr. Wayne, Agent Chun replied. We have teams in position around Wayne Enterprises. The moment Harrison incriminates himself, we'll move in. Emma stared at Logan in amazement. You've been planning this all day. I've been planning this for hours, Logan corrected. Ever since I realized Harrison would never stop hunting us unless we forced him to reveal himself completely. He turned to Agent Chin. The building's communications? Fully monitored. Every word spoken in Wayne Enterprises tomorrow night will be recorded and admissible in court. Agent Chen's expression grew serious. But Mr. Wayne, you understand the risks. Harrison's desperate enough to kill you even knowing he'll be caught immediately afterward. I understand, Logan replied. But Agent Chen, Harrison Thorne murdered my wife 15 years ago. He's spent the time since then destroying other families, hiring killers, corrupting everything he touches. This ends tomorrow night, one way or another. Lily looked up from her puzzle, her young face creased with worry. Daddy, you're not really going to let the bad man hurt you, are you? Logan knelt down beside his daughter, taking her small hands in his. Princess, sometimes grown-ups have to do scary things to make sure the people they love are safe. But you know what? I have the best reason in the world to come home tomorrow night. What's that? You and Emma, Logan said simply. My family. The most important thing in the world. Lily hugged him fiercely, her small arms strong with 6-year-old determination. Promise you'll be careful, Daddy. Promise you'll come back to us. I promise, Logan said, meaning it with every fiber of his being. As the evening progressed and the final details of their plan fell into place, Logan found himself standing on his balcony with Emma, looking out over a city that had been the backdrop for so much pain and loss. Tomorrow night, everything would change. Either Harrison would finally face justice for his crimes, or Logan would join Sarah in whatever came after this life. Are you scared? Emma asked quietly. Terrified, Logan admitted. Not of dying, exactly, but of leaving you and Lily to face whatever comes next alone. Emma moved closer, her body warm against his in the cool night air. Logan, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said before now. Logan turned to face her, seeing something profound in her green eyes. I love you, Emma said simply. Not because of guilt or redemption or trying to atone for my father's sins. I love you because you're a man who builds instead of destroys, who protects instead of exploits, who chose to see me as someone worth saving instead of someone to blame. Logan felt his heart breaking open with emotion he'd thought he'd lost forever. Emma, I love Lily because she's bright and beautiful and she deserves to grow up knowing she's cherished, Emma continued. I love this family we've built from the ashes of tragedy. And I love you enough to fight for our future, no matter what it costs. Logan kissed her then, pouring 15 years of grief and hope and desperate love into the connection between them. When they finally broke apart, both were crying. I love you too, Logan said. I love you enough to risk everything to keep you safe. I love you enough to face the man who killed my first family to protect my second one. They stood together on the balcony, holding each other as the city sparkled below them like a constellation of possibilities. Tomorrow would bring the final confrontation with Harrison Thorne, the reckoning that had been 15 years in the making. But tonight they had each other. They had Lily sleeping safely in her room, surrounded by security but dreaming of better days. They had love that had grown from tragedy and hope that had survived every attempt to destroy it. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Emma said softly, "I want you to know that meeting you and Lily has been the greatest gift of my life. You helped me understand that I'm not responsible for my father's sins, but I am responsible for my own choices. And I choose you. I choose us. I choose to fight for the family we've built." Logan held her tighter, feeling strength flowing between them like electricity. Tomorrow, they would face Harrison Thorne not as victims, but as partners united by love and purpose. Harrison had spent 15 years underestimating the power of family bonds forged in adversity. He'd thought grief would make Logan weak, that guilt would make Emma compliant. Instead, he'd created his own destruction. A man and woman who'd found in each other the strength to seek justice for every life he'd destroyed. The war was almost over, and Logan Wayne intended to make sure that when it ended, Harrison Thorne would finally pay for every crime he'd committed in pursuit of an empire built on other people's graves. The Wayne Enterprises building rose into the Manhattan night like a monument to ambition and success, its glass and steel facade reflecting the lights of a city that never slept. But tonight, the building felt different to Logan as he approached the entrance. Not like the fortress of achievement he'd built with his own hands, but like a mausoleum where his partnership with Harrison Thorne would finally be laid to rest. Emma sat beside him in the back of the armored sedan, her hand steady in his despite the magnitude of what they were about to face. She wore a simple black dress and carried a small purse containing the original recordings Vincent Cross had made of his conversations with Harrison. Insurance that would ensure their story was told even if neither of them survived the night. "Last chance to change your mind," Logan said quietly as their driver pulled up to the building's entrance. "Not a chance," Emma replied with fierce determination. "We end this tonight." Jack Shepard's voice crackled through their concealed communicators. "All teams in position. Federal agents have the building surrounded. But remember, we can't move until Harrison incriminates himself on the recording devices. Until then, you're on your own." Logan squeezed Emma's hand one final time before they stepped out of the car and into the crisp October air. The building's lobby was eerily empty, elevator banks dark except for the single car Harrison had left operational for their arrival. As they rode the elevator to the 60th floor, Logan thought about the last time he'd made this journey with Emma. 6 months ago, when he'd brought her to see his office, to share the world he'd built from the ashes of his marriage to Sarah. Emma had stood at the windows overlooking Central Park and said she could see why he loved the view, could understand how being so high above the city made him feel like he could protect everyone he cared about. Tonight, that same view would witness the final confrontation in a war that had claimed too many innocent lives. The elevator doors opened to reveal Harrison Thorne standing in the center of the conference room where they'd first shaken hands 15 years ago. He wore an expensive suit and a smile that had once convinced Logan to trust him with everything he valued. But now Harrison's charm felt cold and calculating, a mask worn by a predator who'd finally cornered his prey. "Logan," Harrison said warmly, spreading his arms as if greeting an old friend. "And the lovely Emma Cross. How nice that you could both make it." "Hello, Harrison," Logan replied, keeping his voice level despite the rage building in his chest. "I believe you wanted to discuss some unfinished business." "Indeed I do." Harrison gestured toward the conference table where documents were spread in neat stacks. "Please have a seat. There's so much to talk about, so many years to catch up on." Logan and Emma took seats across from Harrison, the polished mahogany surface between them reflecting the city lights like a dark mirror. Logan could see Emma's reflection in the table, her face calm but her eyes bright with determination. "You know," Harrison continued conversationally, "I've been thinking about the night Sarah died. Such a tragedy. Such a waste of a beautiful life." Logan's hands clenched beneath the table. "Yes, it was. Of course, I've recently learned some interesting details about that night," Harrison said, his tone still friendly, but with an edge of malice creeping in. "Details about Vincent Cross and the circumstances that led to his poor judgment behind the wheel." Emma leaned forward slightly. "What kind of details, Mr. Thorne?" Harrison's smile widened, and Logan saw the monster beneath the polished facade. "Well, Ms. Cross, it seems your father wasn't just a drunk driver. He was a drunk driver with a purpose. A man hired to commit a very specific crime on a very specific night." "Hired by whom?" Logan asked, though he already knew the answer. By someone who understood that sometimes tragic accidents are the only way to resolve complex business disagreements, Harrison replied. Someone who recognized that Logan Wayne had become problematic. Logan felt the weight of the recording devices concealed on both his and Emma's clothing, knew that Harrison's admission was being captured by federal surveillance equipment positioned throughout the building. But Harrison seemed completely unaware that he was confessing to murder conspiracy, his narcissism making him believe he was still in control. "You hired Vincent Cross to kill me," Logan said clearly, making sure his words would be crystal clear on the recording. "I hired Vincent Cross to solve a problem," Harrison corrected. "The problem was that you'd become too successful, too powerful, too unwilling to share control of the empire we'd built together. Our partnership agreement was quite specific. If one partner died, the other would inherit complete control of Wayne Enterprises." Emma's voice was steady despite the horror of what she was hearing. "But Vincent killed Sarah instead of Logan." "Vincent Cross was a drunk and an idiot," Harrison said dismissively. "I gave him explicit instructions: black sedan, license plate number, exact timing. But the fool was too intoxicated to read properly. He killed your wife instead of you, Logan, and ruined years of careful planning." Logan felt rage building in his chest like a physical force, but he forced himself to remain calm. Harrison was confessing everything, providing the evidence that would finally bring him to justice. "So you decided to wait," Logan said. "To try again when the opportunity presented itself." "I decided to be patient," Harrison agreed. "Your wife's death made you paranoid, security conscious, much harder to eliminate quietly. But I knew eventually you'd make yourself vulnerable again. And when Ms. Cross walked into your life, I realized I'd been given the perfect opportunity." Harrison turned to Emma with predatory satisfaction. "Did you really think it was coincidence that you found employment with the Wayne family so easily? That your carefully constructed false identity passed even Logan's security screening?" Emma's face went pale. "You facilitated my hiring." "I orchestrated your entire placement," Harrison confirmed. "I'd been tracking you for 2 years, ever since I learned that Vincent Cross had a daughter who might know about our original arrangement. When I realized you were seeking employment as a nanny, specifically targeting families affected by drunk driving accidents, I knew you were trying to reach Logan." "So you made sure she succeeded," Logan said with growing horror. "I made sure she got close enough to you that her eventual death would be devastating," Harrison replied. "I planted the references, cleared the background checks, even arranged for you to be in the right frame of mind to hire a young, attractive caregiver for your daughter." Emma was staring at Harrison with a mixture of revulsion and dawning understanding. "The other families I worked for, you arranged those positions too. Some of them. I needed you to develop a pattern, a reputation as someone who specialized in helping families heal from drunk driving tragedies. When you finally reached Logan, your credentials needed to be impeccable." Logan felt the pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. "You've been planning Emma's death since before she even entered my life." "I've been planning both your deaths," Harrison corrected cheerfully. "Emma would die first, killed by someone seeking revenge against Vincent Cross's family. You would die shortly afterward, driven to suicide by grief and guilt over failing to protect another person you loved. I would inherit Wayne Enterprises and position myself as the tragic survivor of too many senseless losses." "Except your plan failed," Emma said quietly. "Your hired killers were arrested. Your surveillance was discovered. We found my father's evidence proving what you've done." Harrison's smile never wavered. "Did you really think I'd rely on hired help to complete something this important? Did you honestly believe I'd confess to murder without being certain I could eliminate the witnesses?" The conference room's lights suddenly dimmed, and Logan heard the soft hiss of gas being pumped through the building's ventilation system. Harrison pulled a small oxygen mask from beneath the conference table, fitting it over his face with practiced efficiency. "Goodbye, Logan," Harrison said, his voice muffled but audible through the mask. "Goodbye, Emma. I'm sorry it had to end this way, but some business partnerships require permanent dissolution." Logan lunged toward the windows, hoping to break through the glass and provide ventilation, but his movements were already becoming sluggish as the colorless, odorless gas filled his lungs. Beside him, Emma was fighting to stay conscious, her hand reaching desperately for the emergency communicator in her purse. "The gas won't kill you immediately," Harrison explained with clinical detachment. "You'll have time to experience the despair of knowing you failed to protect your family, just like you failed to protect Sarah 15 years ago." Logan's vision was blurring, but he could see Emma fighting to activate their emergency signal, her fingers trembling as unconsciousness threatened to claim her. He used his last reserves of strength to help her trigger the device, hoping Jack Shepherd and his teams would understand that something had gone catastrophically wrong. Emergency Protocol Alpha. Emma managed to whisper into the communicator before her hand fell limp to the table. Logan's last conscious thought was a prayer that Lily was safe, that whatever happened to him and Emma, his daughter would grow up knowing she was loved enough to fight for, even unto death. But as darkness closed around him, Logan heard something that made his heart leap with desperate hope. The sound of explosions echoing through the building as federal agents blasted through windows 60 floors above the street, racing to reach them before Harrison's final plan could succeed. The war wasn't over yet, and Logan Wayne refused to let Harrison Thorne claim victory when they were so close to justice. Logan's consciousness returned gradually, the taste of oxygen flooding his lungs as federal agents worked to clear the gas from the conference room. Through blurred vision, he could see Emma beside him, an oxygen mask over her face, but her eyes open and alert. Across the room, Harrison Thorne sat in handcuffs, his face a mask of rage as Special Agent Sarah Chin read him his rights. The entire confession was recorded. Agent Chin informed Logan as he struggled to sit up. Harrison Thorne is under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, kidnapping, and about 15 other federal charges. He's never going to hurt anyone again. Logan looked at Emma, seeing the same mixture of relief and disbelief in her green eyes that he felt in his own chest. After 15 years of grief and guilt and searching for justice, Harrison Thorne was finally facing the consequences of his crimes. "My daughter?" Logan asked, his voice hoarse from the gas. "Safe," Jack Shepherd assured him from the doorway. "Lily's with your sister, surrounded by security, completely protected. She doesn't even know what happened here tonight." As Logan helped Emma to her feet, both of them still unsteady but alive, Harrison's voice cut through the controlled chaos of the federal arrest. "This isn't over," Harrison snarled as agents prepared to escort him from the building. "You think arresting me solves anything? I built an empire, Logan. I built a legacy that will outlast anything you could ever." "You built an empire on graves," Emma interrupted, stepping forward with steady determination. "My father's grave. Sarah's grave. All the other lives you've destroyed. But empires built on lies always fall, Mr. Thorne. And now everyone will know exactly what kind of monster you really are." Harrison's face twisted with fury, but the agents were already leading him away, his protests echoing through the empty building as justice finally claimed the man who'd evaded it for so long. Logan pulled Emma into his arms, holding her tight against his chest as the reality of their survival sank in. They'd faced the monster who'd destroyed their families, and they'd won. Not through violence or revenge, but through courage and love and the unwavering commitment to protect innocent people from Harrison's twisted ambition. "It's over," Emma whispered against his shoulder. "It's really over." "Yes," Logan agreed, kissing the top of her head. "Now we can finally start living instead of just surviving." As federal agents finished processing the crime scene and Logan's building slowly returned to normal, he realized that Wayne Enterprises would never feel the same to him again. Too much pain was embedded in these walls, too many memories of betrayal and loss. But that was okay. Logan Wayne was ready to build something new. Not just a business empire, but a life filled with love and purpose and the knowledge that justice could triumph over even the most patient evil. 15 years after Harrison Thorne murdered his wife, Logan finally had his family whole again. Different than before, scarred but stronger, and absolutely worth every battle they'd fought to protect it. Beautiful souls, can you believe the tension we just lived through together? Harrison finally confessed everything, but our heroes nearly didn't survive to see justice served. Drop a comment below and let me know, were you holding your breath during that gas scene? And if this story has you as emotionally invested as I am, make sure you're subscribed because the conclusion is going to be absolutely perfect. 1 year later, Logan stood in the garden of his new home in Connecticut, watching Emma teach Lily how to plant roses while the late afternoon sun painted everything in shades of gold and contentment. The sprawling colonial house was nothing like the Manhattan penthouse they'd left behind. It was warm, lived in, filled with the sounds of laughter and daily life rather than the echoing silence of corporate success. "Daddy, look," Lily called, her 7-year-old hands carefully patting soil around a small rose bush. "Emma says this one will bloom white like Mommy's dress in the wedding picture." Logan smiled as he approached his family. And they were truly a family now, made official by the wedding that had taken place in this very garden 6 months ago. Emma wore simple jeans and a gardening smock, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, looking more beautiful than she ever had in formal attire. "It's perfect, Princess," Logan said, kneeling beside his wife and daughter. "Mommy Sarah would love knowing that we planted something beautiful in her memory." Emma looked up at him with eyes full of peace and contentment, so different from the haunted expression she'd carried when she first entered their lives. The guilt and fear that had defined her for 15 years had been replaced by joy and purpose and the quiet satisfaction of a woman who'd found her place in the world. "The lawyer called this morning," Emma said softly, her hand finding Logan's as Lily continued working in the garden. "Harrison's final appeal was denied. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison." Logan nodded, feeling not satisfaction but simply closure. Harrison Thorne had been sentenced to life without parole, his empire dismantled, and its assets distributed to the families he'd destroyed over the years. Justice had been served completely and finally. "Good," Logan said simply. "Now he can't hurt anyone else." Lily looked up from her planting, her young face serious with the wisdom children developed when they'd witnessed adult complexities. "Is the bad man really going to stay in jail forever?" "Forever," Emma confirmed gently. "Which means we never have to be afraid of him again. And we get to live here in our house with the big yard and plant flowers and be happy?" Lily asked with the directness that made Logan's heart swell with love. "For as long as you want," Logan promised. "This is our home now. Our family home." The past year had been one of healing and discovery for all of them. Logan had sold Wayne Enterprises to a consortium of ethical investors, using the proceeds to establish the Sarah Wayne Foundation for Victims of Corporate Crime. Emma had completed her degree in child psychology and now ran therapy programs for children who'd lost parents to violence. They'd built something meaningful from the ashes of tragedy, honoring those who'd been lost while protecting those who remained. "There's something we wanted to tell you," Emma said to Lily, exchanging a meaningful look with Logan. "Something special." Lily sat back on her heels, giving them her complete attention with the seriousness she reserved for important announcements. "You're going to be a big sister," Logan said gently. "Emma and Daddy are going to have a baby." Lily's face transformed with pure joy, her squeal of excitement causing birds to take flight from nearby trees. She launched herself at Emma, wrapping her small arms around her stepmother's waist with careful consideration for the barely visible pregnancy. "Really? A real baby? A brother or sister?" "A real baby," Emma confirmed, laughing as Lily peppered her with questions about names and nursery colors, and whether the baby would like gardening as much as they did. Logan watched this interaction with wonder, remembering the hollow man he'd been just 18 months ago. Sarah's death had left him broken, unable to imagine ever feeling complete again. But Emma and the family they'd built together had shown him that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant growing strong enough to honor the past while embracing the future. "Daddy," Lily said, suddenly serious again, "do you think Mommy Sarah would be happy about the baby?" Logan felt tears prick his eyes as he considered the question. "I think Mommy Sarah would be very happy that our family is growing. I think she'd love knowing that you have someone who loves you like a real mom, and that soon you'll have a little brother or sister to take care of." Emma's hand squeezed his, and Logan saw tears of joy in her green eyes. The woman who'd spent 15 years carrying guilt for her father's sins had finally found peace in creating life instead of mourning death. "Will you tell the baby about Mommy Sarah?" Lily asked Emma. "Will you make sure they know she was the best mommy ever before you came to be our family?" Emma knelt down to Lily's level, her voice thick with emotion. "I will tell your baby brother or sister all about Mommy Sarah. About how much she loved you and Daddy, about how she wanted to have more children, about how she would have been the most wonderful mother to all of you. And I'll tell them about your first mommy too," Lily said with the generous heart that made Logan so proud. "About how you saved us and made Daddy happy again, and taught me that families can grow in all different ways." Logan felt his heart overflowing as he watched his daughter embrace the woman who'd become her mother in every way that mattered. This was what healing looked like. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of love strong enough to transform suffering into strength. As the sun began to set over their Connecticut home, the three of them continued working in the garden, planting flowers that would bloom for years to come. In the distance, Logan could see the small memorial grove they'd planted for Vincent Cross, not because he deserved forgiveness, but because Emma deserved peace with her past. Every person involved in their story had found their ending. Harrison rotted in prison, paying for a lifetime of crimes. The families he'd hurt had received justice and financial compensation. The children who'd lost parents to his schemes were growing up with therapy and support that would help them heal. And Logan Wayne, Emma Cross Wayne, and Lily Wayne were building a future based on love instead of loss, hope instead of fear, family bonds that couldn't be broken by any tragedy or threat. Emma, Logan said as they walked toward the house for dinner, Lily skipping ahead of them with armfuls of flowers for the kitchen table. Yes, thank you. For what? Logan stopped walking and turned to face his wife, this woman who'd risked everything to give his family the truth and the chance at justice they'd deserved for 15 years. For being brave enough to face your past. For loving Lily like she was your own. For showing me that it's possible to honor someone's memory while still building something new. He cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. For saving us all. Emma smiled, the expression transforming her entire face with joy and contentment. You saved me first, Logan. You and Lily. You taught me that I wasn't responsible for my father's sins, but I was responsible for my own choices. And every day I choose this, our family, our love, our future together. They kissed there in their garden, surrounded by the flowers they'd planted and the home they'd built and the promise of new life growing within Emma. It was a kiss that tasted like hope and second chances, and the knowledge that sometimes the most beautiful love stories grew from the soil of shared struggle. As they walked into their house, their real home, not the fortress Logan had built to hide from the world, Lily's voice drifted from the kitchen. Emma, can we name the baby Hope? Because that's what you and Daddy gave each other. Logan felt his eyes fill with tears as he realized his 7-year-old daughter had captured the essence of their entire story in a single word. Hope. Hope that justice could prevail over corruption. Hope that love could triumph over loss. Hope that families broken by tragedy could be healed by courage and rebuilt by choice. Hope that some stories, no matter how dark they began, could end with light. In the kitchen, Emma was already agreeing to Lily's suggestion, her hand resting on her growing belly as she promised their unborn child a life filled with love and truth and the knowledge that they were wanted by everyone who mattered. Logan joined his family at the dinner table, grateful for every moment that had led them to this place. The billionaire who'd lost everything had found something worth more than money could ever buy. The nanny carrying her father's guilt had discovered forgiveness and the chance to create joy instead of carry sorrow. And the little girl who'd lost her first mother had gained a second one who loved her completely, along with a father who'd learned how to live again instead of merely survive. Their story had begun with a tragic accident on a rainy night 15 years ago. It was ending with a family dinner on a golden evening, surrounded by love and laughter and the promise that tomorrow would be even better than today. Some endings, Logan thought as he listened to Emma and Lily plan nursery colors and baby names, were actually beginnings in disguise. And this was the most beautiful beginning he could have imagined. My beautiful souls, what an incredible journey this has been. From tragedy to triumph, from secrets to truth, from a broken billionaire and a guilt-ridden nanny to a family forged in love and tested by fire. Logan, Emma, and Lily have shown us that healing is possible, that justice can prevail, and that sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we choose rather than the ones we're born into. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please drop a comment below telling me about your own beliefs in second chances and the power of chosen families. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Stories like this, stories about real love conquering real darkness, are what we need more of in this world. Thank you for taking this emotional journey with me. Remember, we are not responsible for the sins of our parents, but we are responsible for our own choices. Choose love. Choose hope. Choose family in all its beautiful, imperfect forms. Until next time, keep believing in happily ever after.